welcome back to Counting Gains News Media. Today we have a GRIPT media article. We actually have two, guys, so stay tuned. I'll do another reaction video after this first one. Today this one's called Ceann Comhairle slams bike shelter costs. So for those who don't know, the Ceann Comhairle in Ireland is basically the regulatory person who kind of, slams down the damn judge, and it kind of mediates the debates between the speakers in the Dáil. Basically, I'm trying to make it like really, really basic for people that don't know what it is. This one should be hilarious. We all know that the bike shelter, which isn't a bike shelter, it's kind of like an awning. It's kind of just like a strip of tin, a strip of tin or a strip of metal with like 3 poles on it, costs 337,000 or something like that, some astronomical figure. Whereas you could have created that, that literally bike shed, which just holds bikes, not even cars. You could have made that bike shed for damn near 10,000 euro, guys. Even cheaper. I mean, sheds don't even cost that much money. Like an actual shed doesn't cost that much money, nowhere near it. So someone has to be held accountable for it, and nobody has been held accountable for it. Now we have finally someone who's, quite big power, speaking up for the people, speaking up for answers. We don't know what's going on. Nobody tells us anything in the government. We're all left in the flipping dark. That's the news from day one, guys. Let's see what he has to say.
I believe it would be remiss of me as Ceann Comhairle not to make a few remarks on the issue of the Leinster House bicycle shelter, infamous shelter, the cost of which has been rightly criticised since it was disclosed. Members of this House have received countless emails, texts and phone calls about the exorbitant cost of the shelter. Nobody can understand how a simple structure to park bikes ended up costing 336,000 of taxpayers' money.
And it's actually not structurally sound. Like, it's actually not built properly either, because like I said, your bike in the dead of winter will still get wet. The awning is like high and the bikes are quite low, so just simple physics would just tell you that if the wind is going anywhere but straight down, which you guys know the rain in Ireland, it always goes side to side. It very rarely comes straight down, very rarely. You notice that because Ireland is such a windy country. Here, especially in the west, okay, very windy. In Dublin, it may fall straight down, more often, but like it does go from left to right or right to left. So yeah, the structure isn't structurally sound. So someone messed up actually building it as well, I would argue. But all that money is taxpayers' money, which is ludicrous.
136,000 of taxpayers' money. I know that I speak for everyone in this House when I say that it's a profound embarrassment, and the depth of public anger is entirely justified. As many of you will be aware, the Office of Public Works is the landlord of Leinster House and other historic buildings. In recent past, they have done outstanding work on the restoration of Georgian Leinster House. I know the chairman of the OPW is preparing a report on the project for the relevant minister. However, as chairman of the Houses of the ROASTS Commission, I've asked the chairman of the OPW to attend our meeting next week, where he will have the opportunity to explain and to answer questions.
Yeah, finally, we need to understand what's going on here, because the guy who made the flipping structure needs to answer questions. The guy who signed off on it.
Specifically, it is important to find out why the value for money of the project wasn't queried when the cost became clear to the OPW. As public representatives, we don't get everything right, and we can be rightly criticised for some of the things we do. However,
I would say you get nothing right. Anyone that lives in Ireland, man, the flipping politicians here are like the worst. You think they're bad abroad? Jesus, like.
The cost became clear to the OPW. As public representatives, we don't get everything right, and we can be rightly criticised for some of the things we do. However, we understand that taxpayers' money must be spent prudently and carefully, and we know how galling it is for those struggling to pay their bills to read about excessive expenditure of this nature on a bike shelter.
The government's a joke. We should have bought flipping guns or missiles or something, because there's a flipping World War III on the horizon. We should have bought like something to protect ourselves. You know, that money could have been used to build a few houses for homeless people. That money could have been used in so many actually beneficial ways. Instead, we spent it on flipping bikes. You should just tear it up, and just get your money back. Like, you can get your money back, guys. Say, you know, sue the guy that did the job and said you are price gouging. Like, you can also go back on things, you know, but they don't want to go back on things because then they don't want to look like they're being proven wrong. So, you know, and I don't like this guy either, man. This guy can't call it yet. He seems like he's downplaying the flipping severity of this. Like, if someone took, you know, 30,000 money off you, or even 300 euro off you, you'd be pissed off and spent it needlessly. Okay, not to mention 300,000 of taxpayers' money, your money. Oh my God, this is insane. Like, and then they're just like, oh well, we don't know what happened. We're asking questions. There's a little inquiry. Like, just nothing will ever be done. Nobody will get fired. If somebody gets fired from this, let me make a pledge. I will publicly come on this YouTube channel and I'll publicly apologize for everything I've ever said, because I guarantee nobody's gonna get fired. How much do you want to bet, guys? I don't know anything. I'm just flipping, throwing things out. They'll probably fire someone now just to piss me off. They'll say, we got to get rid of this independent journalist on YouTube, you know? But I guarantee you guys, nothing will actually happen. Nothing will happen. Oh, my days.
In Leinster House. So let me say that whatever the findings of the OPW's review, lessons must be and will be learned, and there cannot be a repeat of such unwarranted and indefensible expenditure of taxpayers' money. As TDs elected to represent
you know, he says undefendable, but it sounds like he is defending it. Like, let's be honest, guys, you know, they're all in that little club together.
People, we need to ensure that on their behalf.
That was odd. Do you guys notice he was looking at somebody at then? Who is he looking at there?
We need to ensure that on their behalf.
Was he looking at Micheál Martin? Was he looking at Simon Harris? Who was he looking at? He was looking at somebody at the government there, so absolutely ludicrous stuff, guys. We're on to the next video. This one's only a short one, about 7 minutes long. Danube Institute, I don't know what that is. Danube Institute president says intelligent reform policy always includes different things. So let's read the description. So, commenting on the state of the European politics, president of the Danube, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Danube Institute, John O'Sullivan, says liberalism which attempts to enforce liberal opinions is not genuine liberalism. Let's tune in, guys.
I think the most important questions facing us, well, there are many, but if you were to list them, they'd probably include the following topics.
Okay.
First of all, I think it's important for people who live in nations, in countries, to be allowed to express opinions that support the nation, not against other nations, but really against the international technocracy, which has had a good attempt, a good chance at governing Europe and in other parts of the world.
True.
For the last 15 years. Hasn't done a very good job, and other ideas need to be considered. I think those ideas would be such a thing as having genuine borders, of course, but also promoting the family, giving greater respect to religious and traditional moral opinions. Now, obviously, nobody is going to be forced to go to Mass, for example.
Right.
But at the same time, people who've lived, particularly where I am, in Eastern Europe and Central Europe, when they see the attempt to discourage Christian belief and to try to drive it underground, what they remember is what happened under the communists. They listen to the words that governments say, and even when those words are deceitful, nonetheless they recognize a kind of a sound which reminds them of the way the communist governments talked about things. So religious liberty is a very key thing, because religious liberty is also at the foundation of almost all civil liberties as well. And I think that liberalism, which actually attempts to enforce liberal opinions, can't really be considered a genuine liberalism, can it? Liberalism is allowing everybody to have their own point of view and to express it.
Right, that word liberal comes from liberalism, right?
It's not the way liberals are currently talking.
And are there any trends across Europe that make you pessimistic about the future of Western European countries?
I'm temperamentally an optimist, but I am a realist above all. Of course, it worries me that there are attempts in Europe, and particularly in Brussels, to narrow the range of acceptable and respectable political opinion. That's a bad thing, and
they're trying to basically restrict, your free speech, your political opinion. They're trying to make you not able to speak your mind. Even this YouTube channel, guys. Who knows how long I'll still be here for? Like, I'm not saying the government know about me or whatever, but some of my videos have got crazy views on them. Some of them have really got a lot of views, and people watch them, and you can sense that people watch them, guys, because the way people talk on the internet, okay, and stuff like that. So you do understand the way people comment that certain people are watching, right?
Foolish thing, because it drives those opinions underground. The great historian Macaulay said about censorship, "Oh, wise and prudent policy, to leave the serpent its deadly sting, but to remove only its warning rattle." And censorship leaves the sting, but removes the warning rattle.
That's a good one. I like that. So yeah, like, censorship is just horrendous. We all know that over here, County Gains News Media, we're completely pro free speech, pro open to anything, within reason. I mean, that reason is kind of like very, very slim over here, guys. I believe that you should be able to say whatever you want, guys. Do what you want as long as you're not hurting anybody, stuff like that. But nowadays it seems like there's a real restriction on freedom, guys. You can just feel it in the air. It wasn't like this 10 years ago. Definitely wasn't.
And are there any trends that you see emerging across Europe again that you think give optimism, that give you a cause for optimism for the future?
Yes, of course. One of them is that in all the recent elections, parties which represent, I would say, conservative opinions of a reasonable kind have done well. The mainstream parties on the right and on the left in the main, not everywhere, have shrunk. And so that what used to be a huge majority of the European Parliament, for example, is now a small majority. The centre has shrunk, and the extremes, and I don't obviously favour all extremes, even though some extremes are not extremist, but the extremes now take a larger share of the vote in the European Parliament. I think in time we're going to see the conservative half of the European Parliament grow more important, because I think the EPP cannot be the mainstay of a fundamentally left-wing establishment in Europe. And I think that the Christian Democrats in Germany and in other countries, they're going to find their voters saying, both domestically in their countries, but also in relation to the European Parliament, look, we don't want Christian democracy to maintain an unsympathetic left-wing government in power, and we therefore are urging you to join with for example, the ECR group, the European and Conservatives Reform Group. Yeah. That we want you to join with them in pursuing a civilized, intelligent, conservative politics.
And on the European Union, do you think it's currently headed in a successful direction or a direction likely to produce failure?
Well,
that's a big question, because the EU, it looks like now, is not good, guys. It was good beforehand, but now with the whole electric cars, the whole 2030 model and all this type of thing, guys, people don't really like that. It seems like they're pushing for less and less freedoms. Electronic banking, you won't own anything and you'll love it. All that type of stuff we used to hear when we were younger seems to be actually coming true now.
Everybody admires Mario Draghi. They don't always have not always agreed with him on everything, but the fact is he is one of the most able economic minds in Europe. He has just produced a report for the European Union. I haven't seen anybody denounce that report. That report says that Europe is headed in the wrong direction economically, and unless there is greater reform, less regulation, for example, then the European Union over time is going to go to hell in a handbasket. Nobody has opposed that. But you don't hear many people saying it's got to be, it's not enough to write the report, we now have to implement the report. Because whenever you have anybody like Draghi proposing an intelligent reform policy, it always includes difficult things which are painful. I'm an old Thatcherite, so I remember the difficulties Mrs. Thatcher had in reforming the British economy. I think the reforming the European Union and its economy are at least as difficult, and there are far more obstructive people and far more obstructive institutions trying to prevent that reform. I wish Mario Draghi well. I wish and I hope his reforms, plural, are implemented. I can't be optimistic about it.
Yeah, it's a good one, guys. I don't think it's going to be reformed at all, guys. I think there's just going to be more and more censorship, more and more of this, building up the EU military. Now they want to have an EU military. Like guys, you know, in Ireland, we don't even have a military. 6,000 people now. It's the lowest numbers it's ever been. It's failing. You know, we don't even have a police force. The guards are It's like the whole system. And then the EU are trying to bring in these things like, let's make a military for the EU. Let's do this. Let's do this. It's too much, guys. It's crazy. It's a crazy system they're trying to run. And I'm not pro-EU at all, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Drop a comment down below. Stay free, Ireland, my beautiful people. And I'll see you all in the next one, guys. Peace.